We ready for all y'all. We ready.
We
We
ready.
ready. We ready for all y'all.
Welcome to the Travel Like a Boss podcast, where we interview location-independent entrepreneurs that travel the world like a boss by being their own boss. Here's your host, Johnny FD.
Welcome to episode 227 of the Travel Like a Boss podcast. That screaming madman who reminds you of... What was that scene? What was that movie? It wasn't Wolf of Wall Street. It was the Big Short, where that guy
Pounding his chest?
He's pounding his chest at the restaurant.
That was Wolf of Wall Street.
That was Wolf of Wall Street? That was
Wall
such a good movie.
Yeah, that was a badass movie. Leo's just a stud, man.
Yeah. Great
Everything
movie.
he touches is just good.
All right, so Sam and I just got done recording an episode for Invest Like a Boss, which is our podcast that we record together. That one was episode 124 of Invest Like a Boss podcast. So if you guys want to check that out, you guys can. But Sam has agreed to stay on and record an episode for Travel Like a Boss so we can talk about this bossy travels that we've been doing together, meeting up every year since we last spoke. And when was the last time you were actually on this show?
I want to say it was when we were in Bulgaria, like 2 years ago.
Yeah, it's been a long time, right?
It's been a while.
And I feel like you were on a lot when we were in Europe just because we were traveling together. And then I had you on episode 105, which was over 100 episodes ago. So probably, like 3 years ago. That was called Millionaire Digital Nomad with Sam Marks. And that was kind of one of the first times I really sat down and got to know you as a friend and not just as a speaker at the Nomad Summit or this hot shot dude who, made tens of millions of dollars selling a company.
Well, thanks, Johnny. It's nice to know that you took the time to get to know me and see who I really am. It means a lot.
So it's been kind of an epic journey, but one of the cool things that Sam and I do together is every summer we go on a trip together. So first year was around Eastern Europe, and that's how I got introduced to Ukraine. The next year was a walk across Ireland, which I really, really enjoyed. I still think about today. I've forgotten the bad sides of it, of just like the rain and just being exhausted after running, walking. Like we literally walked a marathon in one day. Do you remember that?
Mm-hmm. I think that was about as much as humans can actually walk in a day. So military history, a lot of the kind of failed or forced marches that have failed, and there's a few of them. It's usually around like 35 miles in a day with pack on. And I think we walked about high 30s that day. It was high 50s in terms of kilometers. So big walk with pack. We made it.
But I don't remember that part of it. All I remember is waking up in these small towns, having a full Irish breakfast, which are these amazing, huge, like 5-course breakfasts. You have eggs, sausages, bacon, the like bread the meat pudding that they have. It's kind of like ground up sausage blood or something. I don't know. Hash browns, like grilled tomatoes, mushrooms, and then bread. And I remember it was so much food that even though I'd be starving, I would only eat half, and then I would make a sandwich out of the other half so I can eat on the trail. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And you mentioned the rain and the exhaustion, but it just wouldn't have been the same without it. That's what makes the good stuff so good.
It was so beautiful and so green and so lush, and it was. I mean, we have a video about it, and this I think Sam made one, I made one. So if you look on YouTube, just search Johnny FD or Sam Marks Ireland, and you can watch those videos. I wrote a blog post about it as well. It's called the Wicklow Way, and that was amazing. I really, really loved that. And I remember after a long day of walking, so we'd start 9 a.m. and we'd be done walking 8, 9, 10 hours later, 5, 6 p.m. You'd always be a bit faster, and you would meet me at the local pub, and there was always only one pub in these little villages we would spend the night at, and you would order us a round of Guinness, knowing that they take a few minutes to kind of settle, So I would walk in 5-10 minutes later, exhausted, but I would see this pint of Guinness freshly poured waiting for me. And I remember the creme on top, the head was always perfect. It was like right to the edge, just like, 3/4 inches of head. And I remember just tasting that every day and thinking, wow, this made the whole day's walk worth it.
It really did. It really did. And then the one Guinness in the evening turned into one Guinness at lunch, and then turned into one Guinness for breakfast. And then all of a sudden we were drinking a Guinness at every pub that we passed on the way, and that became part of the rules of the walk. But Ireland, what a fantastic country, wonderful people, just so much to do there, so much joy in that country. It really is like magic.
Yeah, if anyone's never been to Ireland, it really is magical. I would say you're right. That's the only way to describe it, because you can go to a bar in any country, you can go to an Irish bar in any country, but it's not the same. They if you talk to an Irish person and they talk about the crack, they're not talking about the drug. They're talking about just having a great time at a bar. And Ireland is one of the only places in the world you can go, not know a single soul, go there, just show up, and you'll come out having great friends. Like, you'll have a great time. You'll feel welcome. You'll feel at home. You'll be just in a great mood.
You'll laugh.
If
you have trouble laughing, just go to Ireland.
Yeah.
You'll get plenty of laughs.
And it's a weird place where everyone's so friendly, and like, it's not even, and like, both the guys and the girls are friendly. And it's one of those weird places where they're almost like your brothers and sisters, where like, you don't even want to like hit on the girls that you meet in an Irish bar in Ireland, because you're just like having such a nice time with everyone. We're just like, you know what? Like, it doesn't even matter. Like, I don't even need, like, you don't need to party or get a phone number. You're just having such a good time, and you can go back any day and have the same kind of family feeling of being around just great people.
Yeah, I could definitely see myself spending some adequate time there each year, like August, September, something like that. You can drive. It took us 28 days to walk from Dublin to Galway.
It took you 28 days. I went back by bus after, I think it was 7 or 8 days, and I was like, you know what? I've walked the best part of it, the Wicklow Way, and the rest of it is Sam's insane plan to just walk across the country for no reason.
Johnny had the filet mignon and left the salad and steamed vegetables on the plate.
I left the gristle on the plate. It sounds like, all right, I gotta eat all this. It was like, the 64-ounce steak challenge, the 3-kilo steak challenge, where you eat it and you're like, oh, I can do this. This is actually pretty tasty. I'm enjoying it. And then you're leaving the gristle and the fat, and they're like, no. You gotta eat it all.
No. You gotta go to Kilkenny.
Yep.
Gotta make it the Limerick.
But I really had a good time. Like, thank you for organizing and inviting me on that, Sam.
Yeah, man. It was a weird feeling after the 28 days of walking. We stayed one night in Galway and then rented a car and drove back to Dublin. And it took all of about 3 hours to drive. The same distance it took 28 days to walk.
Yeah, but I mean, to be fair, like, we walked through the mountains and all the way to the south, and then kind of you walked back up and then west. While when he drove, it was just a straight shot.
Yeah. And I wanted to say that we were the only people to ever walk completely across the country. But if you go back like 300, 400, 500 years, it's pretty common.
Yeah,
that's how they did it. Not everyone had a horse, so you would walk, and it would take, that would be your trek. So we're just spoiled in our modern age. I do think it was one record. I do think it was the world's longest pub crawl, because it was 28 days. And every single day, I counted all the pubs that we hit, and on average, I think we hit about 3 a day. So I want to say it ended up being like 78 pubs that we went to.
That's nice. Did you go to like any of those really old pubs?
So on the way, no. Although most of the pubs are at least 100 to 200 years old, but there are some pubs in Ireland that are stated at being about 600-700 years old. And I have gone to those before, just on like a road trip around Ireland, purposely going for the oldest pubs. But it's neat. It's a neat country.
I like it. Speaking of Ireland, I want to give a shout out to Conor McGregor. I just heard a interview with him on the Tony Robbins podcast. And I think it was really kind of the first time I heard a long form interview with him. You know, it's always kind of these short interviews where he's kind of just yelling out like, yeah, I'm the best. Like, I'm undefeated. This was the first time I really kind of heard his psychology and what it was like. He started a bunch of companies now since he's, taking a break, I guess, from fighting. So he started a clothing line. Did you know he has a fashion line now?
Didn't know that. Only the proper whiskey.
Yeah, and then he has the Irish whiskey, the head-to-head competitor against Jameson called Proper 12. Do you know where he gets that name from?
Not specifically, although I do know proper is a word used very commonly in Britain and Ireland.
Yep. So that part you got. It's named after the little town where, the place he grew up. It's called Dublin 12. It's kind of like a suburb or town or township that is kind of ghetto. It's kind of like a rough part of Dublin, just outside of Dublin. And I guess he could have called it Dublin 12, but I think Proper 12 sounds better.
Yeah, I do too. It's a good name.
Yeah.
I saw it actually. I haven't tried it yet. I've heard it has mixed reviews, but I did see it at a bar in Miami recently, so it's getting some distribution for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I would order it. I would get a bottle. I would pick up a bottle next time I see it, just to kind of support him and his dream, because who knows if it's great whiskey or not. Because here's the problem: is even if it's not good whiskey, like most of his fans wouldn't care anyways, because they just want to order something made by Conor McGregor or endorsed by him.
Yeah,
it's the same reason why people order like some fancy champagnes or because the rappers talk about him. But props to him, man, for creating a real business and a legacy, and not just blowing his money and then getting too old to fight and losing it all.
Man, I that transition has got to be really challenging. I don't envy it, man. I wouldn't want to necessarily have the peak and rise that he had, because I feel like that would be a very difficult thing to switch off, that you can never really get back. I mean, the rise that he had was incredible.
Yeah,
and the fame that he reached is going to be so hard to. I mean, he's still a young guy. He's 30, right? It's going to be hard to replace that level of stimulation.
Yeah.
No matter what, you can start 100 thriving businesses. You'll never recapture that, and that's why you have these, football players that get addicted to drugs and blow all their money, and you have the military that can never fully retire and assimilate into civilian life. But I think his rise is one for the record books. It'll be very difficult to replace that level of engagement.
Yeah, and it's hard, because I think most people who get quick fame like that, they end up kind of just dropping completely off. Like there was this article going around saying Instagram influencer with I found how many it was, like 500, like 500,000 followers or something like really huge, fails to sell 12 t-shirts. And at first, you're laughing because it's hilarious, right? You're an Instagram influencer with hundreds of thousands of followers, and the post was her saying, "Hey, I'm gonna have to shut down my store because they have a 12-piece minimum, and I couldn't make it." And people commenting saying, like, "What do you mean you can't sell 12 freaking t-shirts? Like, what's wrong with you?" And at first, I just assumed they were bot likes or bot followers. But then I did some research, and she was like a legitimate, social media kind of icon for a bit, for doing like some random thing like lip syncing karaoke videos. And she was an attractive girl, and like young girl, but like for her fans, she's like an attractive person to follow. So that's why she had that many legitimate followers. But it's sometimes hard to like make the switch, and like she couldn't do it. She literally could not sell 12 t-shirts.
I find that it's really like when you have an income stream that you've established, a business of such that you've established, to build on that is I think is somewhat easy. Not easy. I don't want to say anything's like that's easy, but comparatively to having a business, exiting and starting from scratch, can be extremely difficult. It can be, even if you're a very seasoned entrepreneur, it can be extremely, extremely difficult and very frustrating at the same time.
Yeah. And like, so another big fail is, do you remember, that dance where you kind of like, it looks like you're flossing?
No. Is that
like
is that something you picked up in your recent trip to the Ukraine?
No, like a lot of kids do it, and it was actually invented by this guy named Backpack Kid, and it's really popular. It's like a meme. It's in Fortnite as kind of one of the dance moves, and it looks kind of cool, right? But I feel really bad because I saw this interview with this guy who used to be a 14-year-old kid who invented this dance move. It's kind of got really popular. But this was like 3 or 4 years ago. Now he looks like an adult. He's like 18 years old or 19 even. And he's still just trying to live off of this meme basically that he made. He tried to like sue Fortnite and, Oprah and all these companies, these big companies for showing it without paying him. But he lost because it's not like a patentable, dance routine. It's like literally just swinging your arms and it's basically what it is. It's too short to be patented. It's just one move and not like a routine. Like the whole Macarena might be patentable, but like moving your arms in front of you for like 2 seconds isn't.
Yeah. That's just kind of a lame way to go about life, just hanging on to that one thing and suing everybody for it.
Yeah. But it's hard because when you're like that recognized for a while and like that famous, I mean, he was literally all over like Ellen and all these shows, but not being able to keep that fame or monetize or hold on to it. And maybe not him specifically, but a lot of these athletes, they'll make a lot of money during those couple years. They'll make a few $1 million, but they'll spend a few $1 million and they're left with nothing.
Yeah, God, it's got to be challenging. Imagine being a pro football player and getting out when you're 32. And what do? Like when your whole life was football and you're not in your physical prime anymore. You're fading. But like, what do? How do you go and do something that A, replaces that level of stimulation, and B, like has a skill that you have? The only thing you can really do is either use your fame to be a spokesman and maybe like be a commentator for ESPN or something, or be one of the very few that are able to transition successfully into business and have the brain for that. But I don't know. While I would have loved to have been a pro football player, I don't envy at all that position of comparing where we're at in our mid 30s, comparing to somebody that's retiring from their thing and having to transition. That would be challenging.
Yeah, I'd rather be me today than a retired professional football player that has gone broke. Because at least now I have both the money saved up, as we talk about in Invest Like a Boss and having that continuing to make us money, but also have the business skills to be able to continue, creating businesses and making money. And, I guess just having the knowledge to save and invest instead of just blowing it, going out to strip clubs and spending $10,000 in a night just because everyone else in the NFL is doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think where you're at, you can view your prime in life, probably still ahead of you. Maybe it's 5 years ahead of you. You'll be at your financial prime. You'll be at your peak influence level. You'll be at you'll have the knowledge and network. Whereas a pro football player is probably closer to like late 20s, mid 20s, but it's hard to peak after that. It's hard for them to peak after they retire from that.
Yeah, I mean, like, so on Invest Like a Boss, we've had on some former kind of celebrity athletes like Bob Sapp. That was episode 116, and it sounds like he's starting to kind of invest a bit now and figure out ways to make money because he knows he's getting a bit older and he's not going to be able to fight that much longer. But like, imagine if he listened to this podcast where he started, investing when, back in 10 years ago now, I guess, when he was in his prime and he was fighting a K1, he was a superstar in Japan. Like, imagine how amazing that would have been financially for him if he was like, you know what? Let me take half of what I'm making. Let me take $1 million a year instead of spending $1 million a year, partying it up. And I'm sure he had a really great time, but it's hard. I mean, it's hard because everyone else around you is also doing the same, and nobody's talking about saving or investing, or creating passive income or creating a business.
And you know, in like Bob Sapp's case, he's said that he acknowledges that 60-70% of the people that watch him fight want him to get beat up because everyone wants to see the big guy fall. And so now he's he's almost 45, and he's got to take fights he's basically a prize fighter. He's got to take fights to make that check. But knowing, like, you're 40, I mean, I'm 34 right now, and things don't feel the same as when I was in my late 20s or mid 20s, right? So 10 years from now, I'm sure getting up out of bed is not going to feel particularly pleasant as well. He's got to go out and get into the ring when everybody in the audience wants to see him get nailed. And he's got to, and that's the income stream, right? And I think that's the lesson that a lot of, and we talked about that in the episode as well. Like, that's the lesson for professional athletes, is to start taking this stuff seriously when they're at their peak, so that when they get out, they're not forced to leg out another 2 or 3 years in pain just to keep that income coming,
So just in case there's any professional athletes or anyone in that position listening now, what I would probably do and recommend would be, enjoy that time, enjoy that fame, enjoy going out and partying. But you're famous. Realize that, like, you can probably just ask for a free club entry or free table, free bottle, just for promoting that you're going to be there. Like, you don't have to actually spend 10 grand going out. You can probably just get it for free, or just have a limit. Just say, like, look, I'm going to go out. I'm going to spend $300, but that's my limit. I'm going to leave my credit card home. Here's my cash. And if your friends or your teammates want to splash out, just be like, hey man, like, look, like, I'm happy to chip in $300 for the table, but, like, that's my limit. Like, if you guys want to splash out, you're welcome to, but, like, don't order anything on my card.
Yeah, absolutely. And also just the education part. So many of these guys, they get that first check, they don't know what to do with it. You get a financial advisor, but during the entire course of 10, 20 years of using that financial advisor, you're not going to learn much.
Yeah.
They're going to spin you around with all this backwards terminology. They're going to manipulate the numbers. They're going to make things sound confusing, so you ask less and less questions. And at the end of the year, you're going to get a statement that's going to say you made a little bit of money, you lost a little bit of money. Some of the numbers will be blurry. You won't be able to tell what's what. You don't see the fee structure. And then over the course of 10 or 20 years, you don't learn much. And then you're completely at their mercy to perform. And I think that's just a very uneducated way to go through life. You got to take it into your own control. You got to learn this stuff.
Definitely. But also, I think, like, from a business point of view, I think if you have fame, utilize it. Like, use it to promote your own products. Like, even, like, as an athlete, like, it's not that hard to create, like, an exercise program, right? Like, if The Rock came out right now with diet plan, like The Rock, like 30-day diet plan, or The Rock 30-day workout, I would buy it. I'd be super curious what he does because he's in great shape. I think thousands, probably hundreds of thousands, maybe even a million people would just buy his $29 ebook or his video training course on what he does to stay in shape. And you can absolutely do that if you're in your prime as an athlete. And that's passive income, basically, for the rest of your life.
Yeah, it only takes one of those to get it right. But you run some risk in diluting your own brand and your own name by putting out too many things. But look at, like, Foreman Grill is a great example.
Yeah.
Or 50 cents investment in vitamin water. Great example. Two things that returned very handsome.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And okay, so I guess before we talk about a bit more travel, let's talk about more travel first before talking about like how we fund this, because this is kind of the fun part of it.
Fund me.
Yeah. Oh God, did you see that Australian couple, the guy with the neck tattoos that say, like, freedom, that are asking for GoFundMe contributions to fund their travel?
Oh man, it makes me ill. It's just ill.
Or like the backpack.
But the problem is people actually pay it, and then the cycle continues.
Like, Thailand is cracking down now on, like, the backpackers who are the ones that are selling, like, art or jewelry. I don't mind. Like, at least they're selling something, right? I understand why Thailand might not want them to compete with locals who are also selling their art or their jewelry, because it's taking away from local economy. But at least they're selling something, right? I'm okay with that, or even a street performer. Actually, I don't know, because the problem with the street performers is some people might just give them money because they feel bad that this rich, Western white person is performing and begging for money on the street. But the ones that for sure like should not exist are people that literally just have a sign that says like, "Help me fund my travels. Let me continue my travels." I'm sitting on the side of Bangkok.
In jail.
They should be
thrown in jail.
Yeah. Well, not even that, because then they're just taking up, economy. Like
it's a pathetic. That's a pathetic way to go through life. If you're doing that, you're pathetic. I'm sorry. Do something. Add value. Play a guitar and ask for a tip. If you sit on a sign and ask for, there's a case for the veteran, on the side of the road who's got, and I'm not a huge fan of that, but yeah, there's people that have been mentally destroyed through sacrifice, and they might not have the ability to go out and do something. There's a case for that. But if you're traveling and you're begging for money to travel, I think you should be locked up, or at least caned him in the ass a couple times. You say, then you can continue. Every day that you beg, you get one cane on the ass.
Man, it's hard. I mean, I would almost say like Tyler should just deport them, but then who's going to pay for that flight? And like, do they just get a free flight home?
There's chicken buses in Thailand that operate quite efficiently.
You can throw them on
a chicken bus.
Grain health therapy. Yeah, but I think what it is sometimes people feel they get this notoriety because they have a lot of followers on Instagram. They have over a couple 100,000 followers. And people tell them that they love them and that they're inspiring because they're taking these beautiful photos in these amazing places in Bali. But what it is a lot of it's BS. Like, I know a lot of Instagram influencers or travel bloggers who literally are broke out of their mind. They just beg these resorts for like a free night stay, and they'll go and they'll work for like 8 hours just taking photos, like just posing for photos to get the one or two perfect photos, and then just write on their Instagram, saying like, "Oh, check out this resort. It's so amazing." And I guess on one hand, it's working because it's good advertising for the resort, but at the same time, these so-called influencers, like most of them are broke. Like most of them have,
and a lot of them are depressed.
Yeah, and
a lot of them are real depressed.
Yeah, and they're not even enjoying the country because they're just like, all right, from like, I have to be up at 6 a.m. to be here for the sunset photo, or the sunrise photo, and then I have to be in these 8 places because we only have 72 hours in this country. And then, we're going to be on the bus for half of it, and then we have to do the sunset photo here, and then we have to do this nighttime photo here, and then I have to edit these photos and do a million filters, because they look nothing like they really do in real life in their photos. Right. It's insane.
I think the most troubling part of that is for those influencers is every day people are telling them how incredible their life is and how envious it is. And if they, like everybody, have issues, everybody out there has issues. Some people have more, dwell on it more than others. But if you have personal issues or you're going through some type of down period and everyone's telling you that your life is so glamorous and so amazing, it amplifies those problems.
Yep.
Like, I'm pretty sure that's what happened to Anthony Bourdain, right? Everyone's like, wow, he's just an incredible guy with this incredible life. And he obviously had some internal issues, and people are telling him every day his life's great. And he's like, no, it's not. I really have these problems.
And they're like, no, don't worry about it. Your life's great.
Yeah, and it amplifies everything because no one wants to listen to somebody's problems when they think their life is so great. Yeah. So like Anthony Bourdain probably had trouble communicating to people and talking about his problems because people are like, dude, what are you talking about? You're worried about this? Look at your life, bro. And he's like, no, man, I need someone to talk to. And then no one can relate to him.
Or even being afraid to like insult people and ask for help because you think that your life should be great. It's hard to get empathy from people when they think your life is amazing.
Mm-hmm. But dude, I'll tell you, this whole travel thing it's crazy now. The amount of air travel that's happening. I was on a plane from Barcelona to LA direct now. You can fly like direct anywhere to anywhere in the world, it seems like. And the guy behind me is talking. He's like, yeah, I'm flying to LA today, Fiji in 2 days. Then I'm off to Moscow for 4 days. Then I'm heading to Ibiza for 3 days. Then I'm going down to Mendoza. And I'm like, dude, those are all like 15-hour flights. And it's like hop, 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 hop. It's so easy now. and
And
air
cheap.
travel is so cheap and convenient. And like with the new airplanes, like the Dreamliners and the A350s, you get off them, you barely feel jet lag or tired. And the world is just becoming a much smaller place. I recently heard now there's like 60 people that have been to that are alive that have been to every single country in the world.
Yeah.
And the youngest person that has done it just completed it, and she's 20 years old. And I'm like, how sad that she has seen every country in the world by the age 20. Now, what does she have to look forward to?
Yeah.
And she's always going to be that arrogant know-it-all in the group. You've been to every
I've
country.
been there.
Oh,
Yeah.
tell us. Yeah, I've been there. And then what's she got to look
But
forward to?
has she really arrived anywhere? And not just her, but just, the guys sitting behind you, but just people in general who go to countries and they just like bounce around. They're in each place for a few days or a week. I don't envy them.
No.
I feel bad for them that they think that is seeing a country or that's traveling. And it's so like it's just tiring, to do. And like when you go somewhere and you check off the top 3 sites and you're like, okay, yeah, I've been to Barcelona. Like, have you really been to Barcelona? Like, if you just ate at a couple touristy restaurants and you took some photos at the famous attractions, like, versus living there for a while, like going out into nature and hiking, going to like the local beaches, meeting locals, like I bet you half the people who've been to Barcelona don't even know that Spanish isn't the national language there. Like, it's
Wait, what's the national?
Shut up.
Catalunan?
See, Catalan.
Catalan.
And like, it's.
Let me ask you. This is a bit of a political question. What do you think about the whole Barcelona independence thing?
Oh man, I understand that people want to keep their own language and their culture, but financially and politically, it is stupid for Barcelona to want to separate from Spain. But at the same time, I think what they should do is they should have some very clear, like, ideas of what they actually want. Like, they can say, yes, we want Catalan, the language, to be taught in schools, so the language doesn't die. We want our history to be preserved. We want, these are the things we specifically want, but then use that as a bargaining chip and stay with Spain. I think it's silly when like, if Texas wants to leave the U.S., I think it's stupid. But I think at the same time, I don't blame them if they have like specific demands and they use that as a bargaining chip to say, yeah, we're going to leave the U.S. unless, you give us our own kind of voting power and allow us to do what we want to do because, we are our own state.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
But what do you think? I guess I thought the question you were going to ask was, what do you think about the over-tourism of places like Barcelona? What do you think? What do you think cities should do about that?
It's funny that you asked that because I saw on my news feed yesterday that I didn't read the article, but the title was Barcelona considering. Let me see if I have it. Barcelona considering whatever the word is for not allowing tourists to come in.
Yeah.
Like they're just gonna forget about no tourists can come to Barcelona. I mean, it's a major problem there for the locals. While some locals benefit from the economy, like restaurants, shop owners, things like that, a lot of tourists a lot of locals are like their whole lifestyle is destroyed because they're having to move so far out of the city because everyone is buying the units, the residential units, and turning them into Airbnbs because they can make 10 times as much money as renting it to a local. So all the locals are being forced out of the city. I'm sure that can be mitigated with just rules against Airbnb and short-time leasing in residential buildings. But I don't know. All this stuff balances. It's like try to protect the old way of things. And it's just like gentrification, right? Like I think gentrification is a good thing. But for the people that are living in those areas and are being forced out, it's a bad thing.
Yeah.
So do you look at the big picture and the long-term way the world is going and say, okay, this is better for the long-term trajectory, and unfortunately some people are going to have to suffer in the meantime? I don't know. I don't know the answer. It's hard to see with like a future lens.
I have the answers, Sam. I've been thinking about this a lot, to be honest. And so Barcelona, for example, so there's two parts. There's the the short-term tourists, and then there's the real short-term tourists, the cruise ship operators. And I feel bad saying this because I actually really like the Nomad cruise, and so I'm going on cruises now like every year. But I was also on a normal cruise, and I realized it just doesn't make sense, like to have 5 or 10,000 people sometimes get off for 3 hours, go to the like the 2 or 3 top like tourist destinations and overcrowd it, and then just leave. Like the city itself didn't really make any money from that. Like it's not really helping their revenue. It's just making it super crowded and annoying. So the only way that businesses can make money from it is if they kind of just like overcharge tourists for crap around those those touristy areas, and that's not good for anyone. That's not good for other tourists. It's not good for locals. I think they should charge a crazy cruise ship tax. I think the cruise ship tax should be like $200 or $300 per person or something like really, really high. Like if somebody really wants to do it, and I don't think that fee should be passed to the cruise ship itself. I think that should be a tax to be collected, not even a tax, an entry fee to Barcelona if people want to get off and go to these places, or even like if there's somehow a way to just charge a ton of money for the actual popular landmarks. Just charge people $100 to go see like the really famous sites. And if people want, really, really want that selfie at that place, they can pay it. And if they are like, all right, you know what, I'll go and I'll look at some other places, or I'll go to another city, or I'll get a taste of the local culture, or maybe I'll go see a show or something. Like I actually think that capitalism is the answer to it. I think it's ridiculous when they charge $9 to enter, some top tourist destination, and when there's a line of 300 people, like they should just keep raising the price until the line is 30 people.
Yeah, I think what's just happening in like Bali right now and Medellin. Now a lot of the nomads and everyone are complaining about how expensive it is, but it's just the natural cycle of things. Place gets exposed as being a fantastic value and a great destination. People flood in, they circulate it to their friends. More and more people flood in, prices go up, it balances out, and then people find another undervalued place around the world. I'll tell you what, man, Barcelona, the prices, that is not a cheap place. I'm spending, I feel like I'm in LA when I'm there.
Yeah.
The breakfast, I'm having breakfast, like, eggs, scrambled eggs, bread, and a coffee. 11 euros. What's that, like $13? That's expensive,
it's expensive,
man.
Yeah.
That's the price of LA. It's the price of New York. So
that's why I don't live in Barcelona.
Yeah, but that's recent. I mean, that's not 4 years ago. Prices, and maybe they jack prices up over the summer as well.
Yeah.
That could be it.
But here's the thing is, I don't think that it needs to be this like slash and burn tourism. I think like it's instead of just waiting for it to get completely destroyed and then just shutting it down. For example, like PP Island or Boracay, where they're just like, okay, let's allow every 100,000 people to go there a day on a day trip, and then we realize, oh man, we've destroyed this beautiful natural resource. Let's shut it down for 1 year. I think that's stupid. I think it's poor like foresight by the local government or the tourism board, where they could have, they knew 8 years ago there's too many people.
Are you blaming the Thais for having poor foresight?
Yeah, I am. Or the Spanish, yeah. Like
absolutely. I just googled Barcelona tourism canceling, and it's full of articles how tourism's killing Barcelona. Barcelona unveils new law to keep tourists away. I think all this stuff will start happening. I mean, the world's basically balancing. All the great value kind of secret places of the world are now exposed. They're going to start flying direct to all these places that we love, that were basically on the DL before Johnny FD went rolling through and put on his blog. You'll be able to fly direct anywhere to anywhere, it seems like, especially major hubs, but to all these great spots. Chiang Mai is going to get a flight from Dubai direct. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
Bali used to be hard to reach, man. I used to hate flying to Bali. You'd have to take like Air Asia 2 stops from Bangkok or something. Now you can fly there direct from a host of cities nearby.
I do feel a bit bad sometimes because I know I'm part of the problem is about telling people about places like Chiang Mai or other places that I really love. But at the same time, I feel like these places are going to get leaked anyways. I might as well tell my circle or my tribe, you listeners, the travel bosses, about it before, so you can enjoy it now before it gets completely overrun. And the nice thing is there's a lot of places in the world that are amazing now and will be continued to be more amazing in the future that aren't overrun yet. Like Ukraine, for example. I've been talking about it for the last 3 years. I think this is the first year that people actually started coming. A lot of, more nomads are coming, more travelers are coming. And who knows, in 3-4 years, it's going to be overrun and it's going to be overpriced. And then it's going to be the next country, who knows where.
Yeah, but the more places people figure out, the more distribution of those people there is, right? So right now, all the hotspots, Chiang Mai, Bali, Medellin, a handful of other places, at least with the nomad community, are super saturated. But as more places become great places and are figured out, then the distribution, also the nomad demographic is going to continue to grow and grow. So I don't know. I think the most responsible thing for influencers, obviously if you don't expose these places, other people are. I think the most responsible thing is just to carry the right message. There's no reason that someone needs to go to any of these low cost destinations and tell people how to live on the cheap. If the locals are living off $300 a month, it's not a secret how to live off $600-700 a month, right? It can be done. But when people go there with that mentality, it really can be an ugly thing to see on the streets. When you have someone complaining about a 60-cent price of coffee and trying to get a student discount for an extra 15% off a 60-cent cup of coffee, it's kind of disgusting. I mean, I know we've all been there. We've all been living on a shoestring, but that's just kind of taking advantage of the locals who are already living on a very on a shoestring, right? Living a lot cheaper than anyone that's visiting there certainly is.
So one thing I think a lot of people don't think about is reasons why we potentially should pay a little bit more than locals. And I don't mean getting ripped off by people kind of just clearly just trying to rob us. That I'm very, very against. If someone tries to charge me 10 times the amount a local pays, I get pissed off because they're just robbing me, whether it's for taxi or a kilo of strawberries. But things like, let's say, museum entrance, I don't mind paying double what a Thai person pays, because I think of it as this way: the price should be 200 baht, $8. It's the locals are getting a subsidized discount, so they can go because they're residents or they're locals. I think that they just rewarded it differently. I think instead of saying Thais 30 baht, foreigners 200 baht, I could see why people get pissed off about that. I think what they should do is just have the price be 200 baht, but if you have a local, Thai, you're a local Thai citizen, you have ID, then you get an 80% discount or whatever it is, and that way it feels more fair.
Yeah, I can see that.
And as far as even let's say ordering food or buying stuff, I don't mind if we pay a little bit more, because we are harder to deal with. I think a lot of people don't realize that when you go on a local bus for 30 cents, but you have a huge backpack or a huge piece of luggage, you should be paying for 2 seats.
Yeah.
Versus a local Thai person or a local, person that takes it to work every day and they're half our size and they're not carrying anything.
And they get on the bus without complication, where you hold up the line trying to find coins in your pocket and you break a $20 bill for a 30-cent bus ride.
Literally. Because
just disrupt the whole process.
Yeah, it slows down the bus, and it's more effort. So we should pay a little bit more for that. I don't mind.
I agree, Johnny. Maybe we should write a code of tourism for the world, especially for developing countries, that should be adopted. You should set some type of standard on Johnny FD that like in order to read this blog and travel to places that you travel, you must agree to these terms of service.
Oh my god, and it's not going to be me writing that. But I mean, I do try to set a good example. Like, I mean, for example, like in countries where tipping is not the norm, I like. But if some people tip, like I won't. There's some places like I won't drive up prices for other people. I think that's kind of rude. But for example, in Ukraine, it's not normal. You don't have to tip, but even local Ukrainian people, they will try to tip, 5 or 10% for a nice dinner. So I've just made it a rule where even though it's super inconvenient because you have to pay, you can't pay tip on your credit card. You have to have these cash for it. And normally you don't have the exact cash. Now I'm like, I just make it a rule where I keep, small bills or just like exact change. And then I leave 10% tips at restaurants, even though it's not expected, but just because I can.
Right. It's nice. Absolutely. There was this one dude in Chiang Mai. It was the worst thing I've ever seen in the Nomad community. I still get boiled when I see it. This guy, I'm sure some of the listeners have seen him. He's in Chiang Mai. He's probably 45. He's a developer. I think he might be like a crypto developer of some sort. And he goes to coffee shops and he sets up 2 to 3 screens, and he'll plug in like 8 different accessories. So he'll have an entire like 6-plug outlet dedicated to charging his phone, his drone, his whatever.
Bitcoin miner.
Bitcoin, like literally like all these different accessories. And he'll take up, he's the guy that will have a bag in the 2 chairs next to him, and then he'll have his feet up in the chair across from him. So he's taking up 4 seats in a 6-seat table. Then with all of his screens and all of his shit laying all over like the table, no one's sitting at that table. Now I kid you not,
nobody can sit at that table.
No one can sit at a table. And of course the ties are too nice to say anything, right? So I'm in here for 4 hours working. And during that 4 hours, he did not order one thing. Not a thing. He didn't even have an empty cup next to him, right? So he's in here doing all this. He's not buying anything. I mean, it's so foul, right? But he's exploiting the locals, because the locals are too nice to say anything, right? They won't go in and say, "Oh, sir, can you please buy a coffee?" If you're in the U.S., they kick your ass out, right? But they're too nice to say anything. So I almost feel like fortunately, that's pretty rare, but it does happen. And I feel like there needs to be almost like an expat police or like a nomad police. So I went up to him and I was like, of course my blood was boiling, and I go up and I go, "Oh, sir, I noticed you didn't have anything. Can I buy you a coffee?" He's like, I'm so confused. I'm like, "Well, I just noticed you didn't have anything. Do you want something? Like, I'll buy you something if you would like something." He's like, "I don't understand what you're saying." I'm like, "You've been here for 4 hours and like you're taking up all the space." And he's like, "Well, get out, just mind your business." And of course, my blood's boiling. I hate confrontation, but like someone has to say something to that guy, right? So I took a photo and I posted it. And then all these people started commenting like, "I've seen this guy. He like hangs out here, does the same shit every single time." And I'm like, why don't people got to call people out like that? Because that's the only way the system has any type of integrity, right? Yeah. People get away with stuff like that, and it feeds on itself. Then people start thinking that's okay behavior.
Yep, that's true. But you know what? And definitely not defending him, but there's a very big chance he didn't realize what he's doing wrong until someone like you told him or pointed it out. And this happens a lot with the really loud, obnoxious Chinese tourists from mainland China, from Beijing.
Yeah.
What I like, people, every single person I know complains about them, but nobody I know has ever said anything to them. So I make it my point. I mean, I say it every time, like pretty much every week, even here in Ukraine, when there's like the occasional Chinese tourist being loud, I'll go up to them and I'll say to them first in English, like, "Hey, like, don't yell, be quiet, it's rude." And if they don't understand, I'll say it to them in Chinese, or I'll use Google Translate and show it to them on the phone. And then they're always embarrassed because they don't realize that they're being loud and annoying and obnoxious. But actually, this happened. We were sitting in Lithuania at dinner, and remember this.
I remember that. I appreciated that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I love that. I love that about you, Johnny. And like, that's not the first time that you've done that. Like, we've been on trips before, and when you see somebody out of line, you are very pointed at going and approaching them. And I think sometimes we overreach and sometimes we're probably a little too judgmental. But I have that feeling inside me that when I see that, especially if it's an American, right? Because that's my tribe. If I see that, then I feel compelled to go up and say something, and I don't like that feeling inside, and I don't like confrontation. But if no one's going to say something, then how does the system correct itself?
Yeah, because a lot of times people just are ignorant to it. They don't realize they're doing something bad because in their culture or in their mind, they're doing what they normally do, or even like what's kind of expected from them.
Yeah.
And I try to be polite about it in the beginning, but at the same time, I'm not afraid to escalate it if necessary. So I think that's a really, really comforting thing, knowing first off, I'm a big guy, and second, that I've trained in Muay Thai and I know how to defend for myself, where I don't mind going up to someone or a group of people and just, when they're being out of line and say, hey, can you quiet down? You're being rude. Knowing that if needed, I could defend myself. And I think that's... Right. It's something that I understand why some people are uncomfortable going up to people, but at the same time, like, come on, like a loud Chinese tourist, is anyone really afraid that they're gonna get in a fight with these people? Like, just tell them to shut the fuck up.
Yeah, absolutely. And we've all been there. I mean, we're in our mid-30s now. I went to Chiang Mai for the first time when I was 27, I think. And I remember right after I just bought my first condo there, I thought it was a big hot shot. And I'm going for a run through Neiman with my shirt off. And some old, gentle lady like pulled me aside and said, excuse me, like, where's your shirt? That is not, I think she was American. She's American or Canadian. That is not appropriate here. This is a very conservative culture. And she basically reamed me out. And I was like, who are you? Like, I own a condo here. I'm as much of a local as you. Like, what are you talking about? And I went back and I started thinking about, I'm like, I'm a fucking asshole. I'm an asshole. Like, she is right. And I got defensive and she's like, what she did, I respect. And I got defensive and basically gave it back to her. So I went back out in the street trying to find her because I wanted to apologize and to let her know she was right. But that was more the mentality I was in. When I was new to the Nomad scene, I was in my late 20s. And now I guess maybe because I've been doing it for longer, I'm a little bit more sensitive to that type of stuff. And maybe I'm trying to step up and fill that gap of correcting younger, people who are less experienced Nomads. And I think that's how the system works. None of us are perfect, but we're all probably corrected at some point. Yeah. And now we need to, we owe it to the system to continue with that.
And I agree. I'm appreciative when people politely point out if I'm doing something rude. At the same time, I do think that there's kind of this fine line of, I don't know, like, let's say there's something about a culture that isn't really beneficial for them, that they're like, and it's almost kind of hard to think of specific examples, but let's say like with the having the shirt off kind of thing, right? Like, if we're near a beach town and there's really no reason why we should have our shirt on, like we should have to be like fully dressed to be by the beach. And on one hand, I want to respect the local culture and traditions that they cover up even at the beach. But at the same time, I also think, I'm like, you know what? They would be happier and freer if they just learned to let loose a little bit. So it is kind of a weird balance. But what I try to do is I try to imitate what is acceptable with locals. Like with the shirt off thing, it's kind of complicated because I do see Thai people sometimes just walking around in literally one of those it almost looks like a towel or something with their shirt off and like near their house. And maybe it's not a high class thing. It's not like, I think like high class people don't do it. But there's definitely like the darker skinned Thai people who just walk around, especially the men walk around with their shirt off.
Yeah, especially in the South. Well, mostly in the South. It's culturally a little bit different down there than, well, a lot different down there than in the North anyways.
Yeah, so it's hard because, at the same time, like, I want to respect cultures, but I also want to take the good things from there and also hopefully leave like something good. So like in Thailand, in Ukraine, for example, it's normal to be very like cold to people or very like pessimistic and not be very warm, not really say thank you. I kind of like bring a bit of that American warmth, not overly, not trying to like change the culture too much, but just like kind of like doing like nice things. Like, for example, I was waiting for this bus, and it was taking forever. We were standing there for like 20 minutes, and it started to rain. So I decided to call an Uber to the train station because it was we were really far out of the city. We were like 40 minutes out of the city, and I knew that the people that were also waiting there were also going to go to this train station, to the metro station. That's like the most common place to go. So I had my friend tell them like, hey, I called a taxi. We're going to this train station. If anyone wants to join, you can hop in. Because, I'm going there anyways. It's raining. And at first they were like, no, it's okay. And I was like, no, please, I insist. We have like 3 extra seats. And they're like, how much does it cost? And I was like, no, it's like, I'll pay for it. I'm going anyways. Just come. And eventually I convinced them to come. I almost had to like force them in the cars, but like, just come. Like, don't worry about it. And it was such an uncomfortable 20-minute drive because they thought that I was going to like charge them something crazy or it was some kind of scam. And when we got to the train station and I was like, okay, goodbye, the guy was like, wait, like, are you sure you don't need money? And I was like, yeah, it's fine. And he's like, thank you. Like, this is not normal in Ukraine. And I was really thinking about that, thinking like, yeah, it was not normal. So I'm breaking their cultural norms and doing something that makes them feel, at least in the beginning, a bit uncomfortable just because it's different. But I'm hoping that what I left, was they can kind of see like, hey, you know what? Maybe next time I have a taxi or I have an extra seat and it's raining and someone needs a lift, that I can offer them a ride.
I think you've mastered the game after last how long you been on the road, actually?
Man, dude, way too long. I actually sometimes, it's almost embarrassing. I lie to people, like not lie, but I undersell it because especially if I'm just meeting someone for the first time and they're a backpacker, and they're like, and they're like, oh, like, how long have you been traveling? I've been traveling for 2 months now. I'll be like, oh, like a little bit longer than that, like. Because by saying like, oh, it's been 11 years, it just sounds ridiculous.
It does sound ridiculous. It sounds like you're a very unstable person with no roots, no responsibility, and it's a tough question to answer because everyone's like, oh, where are you from? Where you live? Well, yeah, that's a good question. I've been trying to figure that out for a while.
How do you answer that when people say, where are you from?
I literally answer it different every single time, but it usually starts with good question. My plan is to do this, but
yeah. I still
my
say San
plan's
Francisco.
always changing, man. Yeah,
I say San Francisco, but I haven't lived there in more than 10 years.
I definitely do not say any
Tampa.
place in the U.S. Yeah, but I also don't like saying Thailand because
sounds weird. They're like, oh, do you speak Thai?
Sounds
like,
weird.
Not really.
It's like, if you've been living in Thailand too long, it's kind of weird. Yeah. So I've just been saying I'm moving to Barcelona.
Okay.
So if my visa fails, then I got to come up with something new.
Yeah. So tell me about that. You had a place in. Okay, so I guess long story kind of summarized. We met in Chiang Mai. You were living there in Thailand kind of most of the year for a long time. You owned a couple condos there, and then you moved back to the U.S. for a while. You wanted to establish roots. You signed a year lease for an apartment and a 2-year car lease in Tampa.
Yeah. Bought
furniture, set up a whole life. Decided, okay, I'm done with this nomad thing for a while. I'm gonna settle down. What happened?
Yeah, it was good in that it grounded me and it made me appreciate. Like I was just burned out of the nomad thing. I was burned out of not having a home or a place to be or a solid group of friends in any place. I have like friends in 100 different countries or cities around the world, but I don't have like a core group where I know I go and there's 30 friends or something. So I set up the place in Tampa just to be near my grandma, be near my parents, try to get reassimilated back to the U.S. And it was good in some ways, but I just realized long term, long term, I don't think it's for me. I don't find it that interesting. I don't have any reason to be there. So so the plan is changing now to move to Barcelona, working on my Spanish visa. And then I'll probably keep a small place in like Charlotte. I know this shit's getting confusing. I see your face. Like, what are you doing? I don't know, man. I like Europe culture and I like Asian culture. And I don't like North America is just where I'm from. People want something different, I think, right? So I go back and I'm like, yeah, there's all these comforts. I have my family and I know how to get around and I know the system, but I know what's around every corner and it's not interesting to me. But when I'm in like Europe or especially Barcelona, as soon as I walk out on that street, I'm just like stimulated. I love it. I love everything about it. Just feel like I fit perfectly in.
For me, when I go to Chiang Mai or I'm walking around the streets of Eastern Europe, I feel that same excitement and stimulation that I don't really get back home, or if I'm in one place for a long time. And I think it's natural to want to explore and see new different places. I also wonder though if, I don't know, like, just because we can do this and it's exciting, should we be doing this? Like, is it normal or is it healthy to just have new, stimulation, every day for the rest of our lives? I mean, I guess an easy way to think about it would be like, I don't think I eat at the same restaurant ever more than like once or twice, because I'm always in a new city or a new country. Even though I really like that restaurant, I go somewhere, I'm like, this place is amazing. But just because I'm not physically in that city for that much, I'm not going back to the same places. Is that better? And to go to try new cuisine and new places every time you go out, or is it better to have like the handful of restaurants that you in your hometown that you love and you adore and you go back to all the time for 10, 20, 30 years?
Depends what your metric for measuring better is, but one good thing to consider, one good reference point would be that the USA is probably the most stimulated country in the world. When you think about capitalism, there's drugs, there's party, there's fast cars, there's the latest technology, everyone's on their phones, blah, 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 right? It's a super stimulated country as a whole. It's not a very long living country as a whole. It's got a lot of heart disease, a lot of cancer, shorter lifespans than Europe, Asia. If you look at where people live the longest in the blue zones, they're people that have very little stimulation. They're people that live in a very communal type of place, usually by the beach. They have very simple diets. They probably never go to restaurants. They always eat at home. They have community around. They drink a lot of wine. But they have very little stimulation, but they have a lot of comfort. They have a lot of just safe feelings, warm feelings. So if you want to live a super interesting life, then yeah, I think that what you're talking about doing is probably the best story and something that you'll have the least regrets with. But if you just want to live the longest and be the healthiest, probably best just to hunker down to one place, get a tight-knit group of friends, a couple bottles of wine, and just chill.
Yeah, I think the longer I'm doing this Nomad thing, the more I want to slow down. I think my ideal Nomad life, my ideal kind of life would be 5 or 6 months, so basically half the year in somewhere like Chiang Mai, where it feels like home. I have good community, I have good friends, people I see, and it's nice because every winter I see the same people in Chiang Mai, because even though they travel, everybody comes back November, December, January for the great weather, clean air, and also for the digital nomad community, the Nomad Summit. Mm-hmm. And it's just a nice reunion every year. I don't think I would ever give that up. So let's say 3 months in Chiang Mai every year, November, December, January, maybe the beginning of February.
I'll tell you what's going to kill that for you is when you have kids. I've thought about this 1,000 times, and that's if you have kids, you can't go there during those months because of school.
No, I'm going to take them. I'm taking them. The American education system is terrible anyways.
All right. So, well, when you figure out how to make that work, let me know, because I've thought about that a lot, and I would like to do the same thing. But, so Chiang Mai, that time of year, where else?
Okay. And then from, let's say, mid-February, March, April, maybe somewhere like Sri Lanka. Great place for like surfing, being by a beach, or it could be anywhere else, like, anywhere else in Asia, right? And then as soon as the weather gets better, so let's say May, June, July, August, September, those 6 months, somewhere in Europe, somewhere, that's not too busy. Like, I personally wouldn't go to Barcelona, but I would definitely go to one of the smaller beach cities in the south of Spain, or somewhere in Portugal, Canary Islands, or Eastern Europe. I really like these places. And then, I guess once, a month back in the US a year. But honestly, I wish I could just cut that out. Like I would rather be able to fly just directly between Europe and Asia back and forth than have to go back to the US because it's so out of the way.
It is.
But my parents are there, I have
yep.
friends there. Sometimes I need to go back and pick up a physical driver license or credit card. Like it's
just it's the cards we have.
Yeah.
We're never going to be able to cancel out the US because we have family there.
Yeah. But as far as having kids, and I've actually already thought about this. So for the first, 4 years even, you don't need, they're not in school, right? And if anything, just throw them on your back. I wouldn't even have a stroller. I would literally have one of those like kangaroo pouches and just put them on my back or my front and just walk around. Mm-hmm. And then I think once they get to an age, like so kindergarten, preschool, you can just like throw them in the local ones. Like it really doesn't matter. They just need to have simulation with other kids, but I think it's, first through fifth grade, that's really important where they need kind of like a core, like building blocks for like language, alphabet, things like that. I think what I would do is I would do a hybrid system. I don't believe in homeschooling as in like I'm teaching or my wife, the mother of the kids are teaching like this one kid or two kids that are 3 years apart. I think it's silly. I think what it would, but at the same time, putting them in a public school of like 30 or 40, 50 people in a classroom, I think is also silly. I think what would be really cool is to hire a good teacher and pay for them to travel with us or live in those countries with us because they want to imagine that like as a teacher they would love to travel and go to these cool places and say, hey, this is our schedule for the next year. You need to commit 2 months in Thailand, 2 months in the Canary Islands, 2 months in Lisbon, 2 months in Prague, whatever. Would you like to do that? And I guarantee they would be happy to do that, especially if we pay for their flights.
Yeah.
And their babysitter, their like teacher, a helper. And to keep that cost down, I could just announce it as a program and say, this is our schedule. This is our teacher. We have room for 8 other kids. You can join in for some or all of this itinerary.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, if you can organize that with enough people that want to join that schedule and also have the kids that are the same age, I think that could be ideal. It's basically like homeschooling with your own private teacher.
Yeah. But like it's the best of both because like if you have even just 5 other kids, it's enough for social interaction, Yeah. And I think by traveling and being exposed to different cultures, they'll probably learn more doing that than sitting in a classroom.
Well, they'll definitely learn more life skills. I mean, there's not much that I think growing up early school, like you of course learn language and you learn basic mathematics, which is very important. But there's not a ton else that I remember like about science or history until I was like all the history that I know is all stuff that I've watched on documentaries or dug into since I've been out of college, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not a lot of that I remember about war history or economies that I learned anytime before I was 18, for sure, even though a lot of your schooling was dedicated to that. You just don't have the brain, I don't think, developed to absorb and remember those type of unuseful tidbits of information at that time.
I mean, that's the key. It's unuseful. I mean, my history classes were literally taught by my phys ed teacher, and they didn't care about the subject. Like, I didn't care about the subject. I would have learned way more if they said, like, okay, everyone watch this Netflix documentary, and we're going to watch half an hour of it per day, and then we're going to talk about it for half an hour as a group discussion. And then that's 1 week. I guarantee that we would learn more from that.
Yeah, like that.
I love it.
Well, one thing we can agree on is education is definitely going to be evolving very quick. And there's going to be a massive emerging demographic of nomads and remote workers that are going to want to live this lifestyle and not compromise just because they're having kids. And there'll have to be systems, especially educational systems, that pop up to support that.
Yeah. And you know what? Like, what's cool about this kind of, homeschooling idea I have with the private teacher idea is worst comes to worst. I'm paying a full-time teacher myself, but I think it's worth it if I want to have kids. And then, in the best scenario, it's a business that actually makes money. Where not only do I earn money from organizing these trips, or hiring these teachers, but also my kids get to have a great education for free.
And Johnny, you get to get re-educated on second grade mathematics.
No,
so.
I won't be sitting through it. But like, I mean, and also we're creating a job, like a dream job. Like imagine someone who's is a teacher, like a second grade teacher, and you're like, hey, would you rather live in your small town back home and pay all these bills, or do you want to come travel the world? You have weekends off. You have night, and I wouldn't even have it be an 8-hour day. I think it's ridiculous to try to teach a kid for 8 hours a day. They don't have that attention span. It'll probably be like a 4-hour school day.
Yeah, 4-hour school day, and then go explore the local area and get introduced to the culture.
Yeah, 100%. I love it. So, what are your travel plans for the rest of the year?
I'm going back to Florida for basically to tidy up my apartment, get rid of it. Then I'm heading back to Spain for a couple weeks. Going to make a quick trip to Mykonos and the Greek islands. Should be nice. And then back to Florida. Get my visa for Russia, and then I'll do Trans-Siberia. Planning to do it like end of November, which would end us in Beijing, kind of early December, and then probably do Christmas in Thailand, and then make my way back to Spain for the kind of hopefully a new chapter of life, new base.
I like it.
Yeah.
I'll meet you out in Thailand this December. I'm definitely not going to go to Beijing, especially not in the winter.
Yeah, no, it's just where the train ends, I believe. So just get off the train and get a flight down.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. And so we've got – what's funny is we're about to wrap this episode, but this episode was originally going to be about Lithuania, our time together hanging out this trip. But I guess if you guys want to know more about it, you can read my blog post on johnnyfd.com about Lithuania, watch the video. But overall, what were your impressions of Lithuania?
I thought it was a fantastic country. I thought Vilnius was a wonderful city that entertained me for a month for sure. It's quiet, it's quaint, it's very orderly. You don't get I know they exist there, but you don't really see or get the stag parties like a lot of people talk about in the Baltics.
No, there are no stag parties there. And the reason why I know that, I met a group of Lithuanian guys here in Kiev that were on a stag party.
Okay.
So they are literally just leaving their own city and coming here for it.
Yeah. The price was right. It's the EU, but it's still affordable. Coffee shops are great. Excellent food. The Lithuanians are really nice. There's lots of activities in and around the city. I'll summarize. Like one guy I've talked to that was in Norway, who's a CEO of a company in Oslo, and I asked him what his favorite cities in Europe were, and he said Barcelona and Vilnius. And that was when I was in Vilnius, and I was like, wow, that's really interesting because most people have never heard of Vilnius, certainly never been to Vilnius. And I would say that it's a fantastic city. I think it's going to get a lot more attention from especially remote working community. And I would go back. I had a lot of fun. I spent a month there, which is a long time for me. And I enjoyed every minute of it.
Yeah, I would say I agree with everything you said. It's one of those places where if I had to live there for whatever reason, like if you said, Johnny, like this is where you live now, I'd be 100% happy. Mm-hmm. But having other options of having cheaper places in the world, places that are a little bit more exciting, places that are a bit more gritty, like places that have a bit more of a sense of adventure, and places that are just like, I don't know, I guess that are just more overall interesting. I would rather be in Kiev, where it's not as nice, all right? Like it doesn't work as well. It's not, like not everything is as clean or as fancy, but I'd rather be here just because it's more exciting for me.
Yeah, I could say if there's one knock on Vilnius, it might be a little bit too vanilla. Just almost too orderly. The parks are great. It's super safe. You can walk around at 3 a.m, no problems, anywhere in the city probably. I'm sure there's a couple of gritty spots, but it's probably a place I would rather raise a family than be in my mid-30s and single.
Yeah, and I think
that's a good way to frame it.
Yeah, honestly, I think if I lived there long term, like I would have. I mean, like Lithuanian women are beautiful, right? Mm-hmm. But they're also really untrusting. Like, and if you're a tourist, there's no way that they're going to give you the time of day. But if you're living there, you can have you could probably, not a great dating life, but you can probably meet a great, beautiful, amazing, smart girlfriend. They speak great English. So I would say it's a great place to live. So if I was European and I was living in the UK or something where the visa was an issue, I would move there. It's a little bit cheaper than Western Europe. It's nice. Like, infrastructure is great. But as an American, like, there's no way I would move there right now.
To Kiev then. Kiev and Barcelona. We'll keep it to those two destinations.
I love it. All right, it was really fun talking to you. I know we didn't get too much into the income part of it, but luckily we just recorded a 1-hour podcast on Invest Like a Boss. It was episode 127.
Well, it'll be the most recent episode.
Yeah. Episode 124 of Invest Like a Boss, where we talk about exactly what we invest in and the kind of the money that we make from it. But basically the breakdown of it is Sam, if you guys want to take a listen to his episode, I think it was 104 of Travel Like a Boss, or watch the video on Nomad Summit, just look for Sam Marks. He talks about how he built and sold a company for, in total, $100 million, kept tens of millions of it, and invested all of it to have enough money now to basically live off of passive income, investment income. I've done it on a very much smaller scale, where I've built up all my businesses, sold my dropshipping stores, and now I have enough money invested and making me passive income to have, right now, I think about $2,500 to $3,000 a month in passive income, a lot of it in investment income. So this is how we're able to travel and not have to trade time for money, to be able to make money through investments and passive income. If you want to know more, take a listen to Invest Like a Boss. Subscribe to it on whatever podcast app you're listening to right now, and look for that latest episode, which is 124.
John, it's been a lot of fun. Thanks for having me on, and greetings and salutations to your audience.
Yeah. Thanks, guys. See you guys all next week. Ciao.
Thank you for listening to the Travel Like a Boss podcast. If you want to hear more, including the bonus How to Choose the Perfect Niche episode, join our mailing list at travellikeabosspodcast.com. See you next week, and remember, if you want to travel like a boss, you need to be your own boss. So start your online business today and start living the lifestyle you've always dreamed of.